and Parks and Rec registrations drove general fund revenue during this period. General fund expenses included paving materials and equipment rental. They paved Bowtree, tree removal, fuel, building and vehicle maintenance, district court expenses, and other routine operational expenses. The Capital Reserve Fund incurred about $11,000 of expenses for the township building, lighting, equipment inspection, warranty coverage, and lighting for the new public works trucks.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure registered and summarized in the treasurer's report.
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? None in the room? Anyone?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Steve, I just want to know what this is. I forgot to ask you. On page 4, at the top under the fire marshal expenses, it says structural boot.
Yeah, those are the
What is that?
those are the legit boots that he would have to go in
That's
to
fine.
buildings with. Yeah.
I wonder if that was the case.
And we were getting them
They're pricey.
through, they get a discount through East Whiteland, so we ordered through them and Kevin
That's great.
Miller.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have more people on Zoom than usual, so I just want to remind everybody on Zoom, if you raise your hand, there's a raise your hand icon on any topic here, and then we can get to you that way, just so everybody is aware.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on treasurer's report in the room? How about on Zoom? Any hands up on Zoom?
No.
Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5 to nothing.
Thanks, Dave.
Old business, Derek, this is the Applebrook Park tree planting.
Yes, so at the last meeting, we did talk to, well, we didn't talk to anybody here at the meeting, but I have been in discussions with the executive director of the Chester Ridley Crum Watershed Association to do a planting of trees in the Applebrook Park section of East Goshen Township. Executive director's name is Carly Lair. She has actually joined us tonight via Zoom. So the material here provided to you is a little bit more detailed in the contract of what it would look like for them to go ahead and do some plantings in the East Goshen Park, well, the Applebrook side. And again, out for discussion for the board. They're looking for a decision so they can order the trees. It is all privately funded, so there is no initial funding from the township necessary. There will be some after a couple of years, probably some maintenance, but no initial funds are necessary from township perspective. So again, we discussed this at the last meeting. Carly is here. Carly, I don't know if you want to just kind of delve into the event and what your thoughts are first, and then we can take questions from the board and the public if necessary.
Briefly.
So
Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me all right?
yep, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm not there to join you in person.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer any questions that you may have. We kept the agreement relatively short, but we like to have something in writing between the two parties just to have an understanding that these trees will be donated. We retrieved the funding from a private donor who's super excited to get the trees planted. And we put together a plan at the bottom that discusses how the trees will benefit the riparian buffer in the park for the future moving on from the planting. So it's a atypical event for us because we usually do not have a private funder come forward and say they'll fund the entirety of the event. We usually have the state fund it, but they're super excited to fund it and have already given CRC the funding, so we know it's secured. And also they're supplying the volunteer labor, so that brought down the cost a lot. So the private company is AmeriHealth Caritas, and they're coming out to the planting. They're super engaged with us. And then otherwise, the scope of the project is entirely native trees and shrubs that would go within 300 feet of the riparian buffer based on what township officials may be interested in seeing. So we can definitely work on the more specific planting plan with your advice. It doesn't have to be, we make a planting map and we have to go with that map. We can adjust it based on flagging and different types of things with both the township, and I know someone from the East Goshen Tree Tenders was also interested in having some input. So I've been in touch with them a little bit. And then moving forward, We are donating these trees through this funding from a private funder, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't help with the maintenance. We also include that within our plans. So CRC adds that to a list that we have on our sites, and our tree planting coordinator and different staff members and board members will go out and check on the trees regularly to make sure they're doing well. So we keep that in a database so that it's in our plans for the foreseeable future. So that's one thing that I'll just put out there. And we can even have larger volunteer events to take care of the trees. So that's an option moving into the future. And what we're looking at is, if you see the attachment, there's a couple of maps I included just to show the potential planting area, but we were zeroing in on the bottom part of the park. So that would be a tributary of Ridley Creek going into Ridley Creek. And I tried to pick a relatively big area so it didn't look like we clustered a bunch of trees in one spot. And then I mentioned this, but our only stipulation on our end is it has to be within 300 feet to really help with the stormwater management. And we really think it would have a big benefit with this amount of trees. So we're looking at 125 trees within the shaded area that is shown best through map 4 on our attachment.
Carly, this is Michelle Truitt. I'm one of the board members. I have a quick question, couple quick questions for you. Thank you, first of all. This is a really great gift for the township, and we appreciate it. Have you spoken with anybody on the Conservancy regarding coordinating efforts?
Yes. Are you referring to the Conservancy board or?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it was great. Derek was able to connect me with the Conservancy board. So I presented this to them at their last meeting, I believe, and they gave some questions about the maintenance, and I discussed that with them, and they showed their support for the project and also potentially being able to come out to the event if it's approved. So that was great. So I was able to talk to them a bit.
Okay, and then I wasn't able to make it to that meeting. I was ill that night, but the other question is how long of a maintenance agreement would you actually have with us? And is that something where you'd be coordinating efforts with our township staff?
Yes, definitely. And we have the volunteer resources to take care of maintenance into the future. And we definitely can schedule events, but we usually rely on the landowner providing us input to be able to complete that maintenance. So what our maintenance looks like moving into the future is, for the first couple of years that the trees need to take off, we come back regularly, remove invasives, add mulch, that sort of thing, to make sure that they survive. And then from there, once the trees are established, our point of the planting is so that they shade out invasives, so there's minimal maintenance. And that's been what has shown at most of our sites. And I think with Applebrook, it will be the same, just because in the shaded area, it's mowed right up to the creek. So I don't really see there being invasive pressure that would be too much of an issue. But that's what the maintenance looks like. And then we keep it in our database. We have sites that we still visit from our first tree plantings like 15, 20 years ago. So we do keep going out to the trees and making sure that they're maintained, but we do rely on the landowner feedback to encourage us to come out more. If you need help with certain types of maintenance needs that you see that we haven't seen yet, we're always welcome to come out for a site walk, and then maybe bring out a excited group of volunteers to support the effort as well.
Great, thank you. That's really all I wanted to know. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions from the board? I want to note that I went out to the site area with Mark Miller, our Director of Public Works, a couple weeks ago. And what he showed me was that it was the planting was all in the riparian area. In other words, for those of you who don't have the dictionary, along that means along the creek, and or in the watershed area, so that it's not it doesn't appear to be land that we would need to extend the park or anything like that.
Yeah, the map was helpful, and it looks like most of the activity is behind the chamber building and the golf maintenance area, and then the large area. What I really like about that area is that it's the existing trail, which is kind of out in the middle of the barren area, will now have some trees in it, and that would be really great.
Yeah. Okay, any questions or comments? Well, let me first ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize the township manager to sign the, well, we got some nice words here. Is it riparian buffer installation agreement with Chester Ridley Crum Watershed Association for the Apple Brook Tree Planting Project?
Second, yeah, go ahead.
And thank you to the private donors, CRC.
Easy for you to say.
Questions or comments in the room?
Actually, I have one more question for Dave or
Oh,
Derek. I know,
another
I'm full of
question?
questions.
Too hard.
Sorry, Mike. Do we have any MS4 credits for anything like this or?
I'm gonna go, I'm definitely checking into it, yeah.
That's great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I don't want to say yes, just
Understand.
jinx myself, but we're looking into it.
But I understand because we are a tree city, that this will also count toward recertification of tree city designation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Okay, any questions on Zoom? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Passes.
Thanks,
Thank
Carrie.
you, Carly.
Thank you, Carly.
Carly, rather. Thank you,
Thank you all.
Carly.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you. Under new business, we have a discussion and possible approval of accepting the low bid for the Milltown Dam Park project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Take your time. Dave, is this you, Dave?
No, this is me.
Okay. You have the numbers?
I mean,
to
if
put
Dave
up?
wants to do it.
He'll chime in later.
Just be patient. Derek's trying to get up the proposals, that's all. So if anybody on Zoom is wondering what's taking so
Yeah.
long, that's what it is.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to briefly, I put together a little PowerPoint, nothing crazy, but I thought it was appropriate given the length of time this project has been discussed here in East Goshen Township, certainly before my tenure and some of the board members as well. So I think it's important to show where we've come from on this project so that informed decisions can be made going forward. So again, just bear with me for a few minutes. We'll get through it as quickly as it possibly can. So just a real brief history of why this project came up. June 17th, 2014, East Goshen was notified by DEP. The Milltown Dam spillway had inadequate spillway capacity to pass the spillway design flood from contributing 6.3 square miles drainage area. So right then and there, a process had to get started for figuring out what to do. Obviously, there was two paths that could be explored by East Goshen at the time. One was the option for bringing the dam structure up to compliance and keeping the dam in place and keeping it a high hazard dam, which was the key there. The other was a partial breach option, which wound up being the actual option that the township went with to reduce the height and storage capacity so that could be reclassified from high hazard to low hazard. So the partial breach was decided upon at a public meeting, June 28, 2016. Along with that decision, it was decided to incorporate a master plan for open space that incorporated many recreational park areas. So it was quite an ambitious plan at the time. There was a dam committee that was formed. There was meetings in public that took place between fall 2016 and then the summer 2017. So I won't go through each one of these, but I think this is an interesting timeline to sort of hone in on to see what the original schedule was and then what really transpired. So if you just go through there, for instance, the final permit application was supposed to be submitted May 2018. Construction was supposed to start between spring 2019 and fall 2019. And then the completion was at the worst spring of 2020. So we know what transpired in the spring of 2020. We'll try to depress anybody and bring that up. But in reality, we did get the DEP permit in February of 2020. COVID pandemic proceeded to wreak havoc on the supply chains. And the project sort of went into a little lull while we were waiting on a lot of paperwork from DEP. And last year, 2.5 years later, we finally got the permit. I won't go through all of, I just wanted to show the graphics, and I think it's helpful to give a visual of what the final master plan entailed. I have this slide, and then there's a couple other ones breaking it up. Again, I won't go through in detail, but as you can see, as I said, ambitious plan, fishing access, there was a boardwalk, parking, couple of parking areas, portable restrooms, everything ADA compliant. So this was the original master plan as the overview. Some of the improvements, again, parking area, 8 regular spaces, 2 ADA, park kiosk, fenced in portable restroom, ADA access trail, fishing pier, low meadow along the dam. Then there was a pond area, 2.5 acres. And that was also had a fishing pier, the water edge access, riparian planting, as we just discussed. And then the low grown lawn along neighboring properties. Another stream area, again, a fishing area. Parking, again, with a little bit smaller area for parking. And this just shows the ADA access that was going to happen. So the original cost of this project in totality at the meetings was roughly 1.4 million, just under that. So 1.391280. That was for everything. That was the stream, that was the stream work and the modifications to make this a master plan park, incorporating everything with the piers, the trails, parking space.
And what year was that pre-construction?
That was pre-construction at around 2017, I believe.
Okay, 6 years.
That was before they.
Yeah, going on.
16 because it was before they got the 2017
Yeah,
bond.
okay, just put in
Yeah.
context.
Now, this was also in the memo, but those were the original sort of budget for it. This is actually what happened. So we went out to bid on July 17th, I believe, and we received three bids, which I was a little disappointed at because we had about one. I mean, we had a lot of contractors at the pre-bid meeting. So our engineers' theory is that it's a massive undertaking of a project when you're getting into the wetlands and things like that. So might have scared some people off, but we were looking at, just so to give us options and to look at the different pricing. There was 2 options that we put forward. There was option 1, which was also base bid A, which was only the dam work necessary to satisfy the DEP. And then option 2 was base bid B, and that was option 1 combined with the original master plan that I showed. So how it all shook out was the low bid for both of them was Flyway Excavating Inc. You can see the numbers there. Essentially, the total construction for option 1 from them was 993,100. For base bid B, it was 5.4 million, and that was the low bid. Again, 5.4 million is the equivalent of the 1.3 million of the number 6 years ago. That was including everything. And the high bid, just for context, was Ecotone Inc. And they were at, for base bid A, 2.5 million. That was just dam work. And then the construction B was 9.1 million. Again, from the 1.3 million of the original estimate. So quite a bit higher than we were hoping for, fortunately, but this is kind of where we were for the bidding process. So I just wanted to lay out, the decisions the board are going to have to make with this. And this is, do you authorize option 1, which is base bid A? Do you authorize base bid B, which is both combined? Or obviously, this is a board decision. I don't know if there's any other thoughts the board.
It's important to
give.
note that we had a grant application we expected to receive. And that grant was contingent on us doing the entire project. And that grant was $950,000. Right?
Yes.
And
yes.
so when you look at the old bids, it covered a significant amount of it, but when you look at the new bids, we're talking a 915,000 against a $5 million project, so.
Again, there are options the board can consider. They can go full project, they can authorize option one and forego the master plan, or can also do sort of a hybrid where we authorize base bid B and take a look at slowly implementing some sort of master plan. I don't know if it would look exactly like the one that was outlined, but particularly if we try to do some in-house, but that would be a conversation we would have to have as continuation of this happens with budget discussions, particularly the long-range finance plan that we have every June would be a good opportunity. So I will let the board discuss what they need to discuss. I will stop sharing my screen, and that was pretty much my presentation. Again, the memo has the numbers as well, and I will leave it to the board to discuss.
Derek, a quick question for
Sure.
you. If we were to authorize the base necessity of what DEP wants right now, what would that include and how quick could they start work?
So that would include, it's essentially lowering the dam to the full, there was already a little bit of a lowering of it. It would include lowering the dam to the final, whatever the final number would be feet wise, and then seed and straw after that's over. So also, so vegetation holds again. But it's not much comparably. If you break down the work into percentages, it's a very small percentage of the overall work. It's the most important work as far as from a regulatory standpoint.
Sure.
Now, just go ahead, sorry.
Is that the $1.5 million number? Is that?
That is the $1.5 million for
bond.
Dave's. That wasn't the bid, but that was what sort of Dave budgeted
Okay.
for the contingency and everything. Yeah, that's the 1.5 number.
And also, just for clarification, we issued that bond program in 2017, and this project was anticipated in that bond issue, and we still have about $1.9 million of that bond money still available for this project.
Derek, how quick, if you were to sign the contract tomorrow, how quick would work start out there? Time frame?
You know, they could probably start within. Put me on the spot here.
Sorry, I know.
I mean, I would definitely.
2 months?
Yeah, I would say within the next 2 months, but I would say, I was gonna say within 6 to 8 weeks. I do want to reiterate what I said in the summer though, and that's our engineer feels strongly that most of the work this year will be the dewatering phase, of which has to be done first.
And that's gonna take some months.
And that's gonna take some months. So beyond that, you wouldn't see significant, I mean, it's an important process, but you wouldn't see significant, construction as we think of it until next year.
Good. Well, I think, go ahead.
My thought is that we go ahead and do what we need to do, recognizing that we're going to lose the grant money as we initially anticipated, but go ahead and do what we are obligated to do by the Department of Environmental Protection or Environmental Resources, as it may now be known, and live to fight another day. Having a significant amount of that work covered by our existing bond and funds we have access to, and then re-examine the master plan and possibly apply for spot grants on phasing in that park. I don't want to give up the idea of having that be a nice park and open space. The original master plan was really nice. Would have really added to the open space assets and resources of our township, which we're kind of known for. But my recommendation is to do what we need to do, award that contract, use the remaining bond funds, and then readdress the issue of getting the park developed going forward.
That's where I'm at too at this point. I just, as the original amount came back, what we had budgeted for, that's great. But if number comes back at, we still need $4.2 million for the rest of it. I think if we get the work we need to get done now, I don't necessarily think that we need bathrooms. We don't maybe need fishing piers. That's a lot of money added to it, but I think it'd be important for staff too. start with a plan on what we can do in-house and move forward, because I do think it'd be nice to have some type of a trail around down there, some type of park aspect of it.
I have a question regarding the numbers. I'm a little bit curious why the bids are so different. The subtotal cost, even on option one, which is the lesser option, one is $1.5 million. The second one is $2.6 million, and the third one is $3.2 million. Have they bid to the same exact specs?
Yes, the specs were the same. The bid documents were the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked Mark Miller about it too. He wasn't as familiar with Ecotone, the high built bidder. Obviously, Roadcon's well known around here, but definitely more expensive. And I questioned Flyway's low bid.
Yeah.
And he said that they kind of specialize, almost kind of like what happened in Hershey Mill Estates. They go in, do it, and get out. So could
Like
work
the
out.
sound of that.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to ask a question as well. I wanted to ask, Dave, do you think that you can give us an idea when we would have to pay the balance, the 400 and well, the total cost is 1.5 million. We have the bond. So the total need we're gonna have is 420,000.
No, that's
the net.
That's the net.
That's the
what-
credit.
So how much do we need for this?
We would still have after this project.
I will still have
If
400.
you
would
look at
still
the
have
six, if
420.
you look at all the companies and all the
I've been
options,
looking at
that's,
so many numbers
yeah.
today.
And we can apply
have
that
no idea.
towards, we would obviously use that for other improvements that we would be doing. and pay
Okay,
for
that's
so-
the only
so
scenario
this
we're
is
not
gonna
in the
be-
red.
This is gonna be covered then 100% with our bond.
Correct.
If you
Okay,
get
I
it
was
out.
thinking we were just gonna be short by a little bit.
No.
That's fine. And then, when would the payment be, would they be asking for 50% up front? Would they be asking for final payment after the punch list?
It
is done?
seems like it's typically in 3 to 4 payments.
3 or 4
We
payments,
get
okay.
advice from the engineer.
I
Okay.
can get some more specifics on that.
Yeah, I should have known because it's not red. Yeah, but like I said, it's been a long day.
If we
with
go
numbers.
with option one, then we have the money.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I like that. I think that's what I like too. Mike, where are you?
Well, a few comments, going back to this, spring, when we're anticipating the bids, and knowing of the, environment that we've been in, the COVID years and, all the related aspects since then in our current inflationary environment, et cetera. I floated to the board a funding scenario with existing township funds to take some from one of the funds, another fund, capital from the infrastructure fund, and came up with a total cost of about $4.2 million that we could do without creating great stress to the stability of our funds and the responsibilities we have to other projects and the like. And that would have been all in, would have included everything. We, expectations do get created. But when you have a project like this that has a long timeline from the early days of the being conceptualized, and the requirements of a other agency that kind of fomented the whole thing to begin with, and the long time frame, it's almost impossible, and you get caught on some of the earlier numbers that get fixed in folks' minds, and they're just not relevant. It was a best guess, pre-engineering, pre-bid, and then all that's taken place in the last 7 years. And I was very disappointed with the bids coming in the way they are. I thought we could have funded up to $4.2 million, including the bond money and as I say, other funds, but it's just not to be. I think there is, the sense I have amongst my colleagues is that just as we had done, or as the township has done over the years with East Goshen Park, building in improvements each year phasing them in and further developing the value of the park through the various improvements. That's the commitment I'd like to see from the board in these years ahead. Everything that's in the master plan right now may not come to fruition in the long term, but over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, that beyond the basics of what we're talking about tonight is probably the path forward. Beyond the basics, that some of those amenities are built in, so the southern part of the township particularly has this location, this site as an asset, something it's proud of, and will be well utilized throughout the township, but particularly in that area, and especially for the neighbors. I think when the basic plan here is done with the proper breaching of the dam, dewatering, and then returning a lot of the vegetation, naturalizing that, it will be a much more pleasing environment than it is presently, and then building from there with available funds. The fact that we have bond money that will be a net still available after this phase is completed is a start to that. At that time, the board, the township would apply for fresh grants, as was indicated, incrementally for various improvements. No guarantees on any of them, but we'd have be able to go to different entities. Whenever you commit to a grant, it's not free money. It's great, leverages the available municipal funds through taxpayers at the local government level, but they come with strings attached, whether it's federal money or state or county money, and that was the basis for it. We'll give you the 800,000, but you're going to build it the way the master plan is represented, and it's just not feasible at this point in time. So I am supportive of the phased approach and doing the basics to satisfy the DEP and the Army Corps, and then having staff and, if necessary, our engineering resources and professionals come up with a phase plan with the input of the departments, Parks and Rec, our Public Works Department, for the years ahead to develop some of these improvements to further value the asset that it should be.
Thank you, Mike. How about you, Michelle?
I'm in agreement with everything that's been said so far. I think that that's the best option right now, is to do what we need to do for the breaching and get that done, and then phase things in. I think that we also need to direct staff to put this on our long range plan for every year moving forward until it's a completed project. And that's similar to what they had done in the past when they were doing the park down on Paley Pike. It's something that needed to be phased in over time. And it was part of the long range plan, part of the comprehensive plan, in fact. So I think as long as it's on the radar and we're constantly moving forward with the project, and I think that's the best we can do at this point. It's unfortunate it's cost so much money. There were a number of delays, as you all are well aware, a number of delays that occurred, unfortunately, a lot of them due to COVID. And I was on the phone with DEP quite a bit.
Yes,
And I was just after them to get that permit through. It was an incredibly frustrating experience, that's for sure. But we were advocating for you. We tried. And I told them, every time you put this off for another month, it's costing us more money and the taxpayers are not happy. So I like the idea of at least phasing it in. And I think that I'd actually move to authorize the township manager to sign an agreement with the low bidder, Flyway Excavating Incorporated, in the amount of $993,100 for dam modification work at Milltown.
Second that.
Just a point of clarification for the folks in the audience and on Zoom, we kicked around a number of $1.5 million, and we just heard a motion for $993,000. The $1.5 million included some engineering costs that aren't in the contract bid. It's separate. And then also, we always build in a contingency. So there's a 15% contingency in there that if we run into an issue with the dam, we always have those unexpected kinds of things. So from a budget perspective, we would be thinking about that 1.5 number. And to make this point, if we don't spend that much in engineering and we don't need any of the contingency, that money that we have left in the bond goes from $420,000 to a higher number that we'd have available, possibly to do some of the other enhancements in the park. So just for
Yeah,
clarification.
good clarification. Thanks for that, David.
Plus, we also have the infrastructure sustainability fund, which we could be tapping.
I
for
would
some of
be,
it
I
for
would
this
be
work.
opposed to using the sustainability fund. And the reason for that is that fund was created to maintain infrastructure, not to build infrastructure.
That's
So
true.
that money could be used after the park was built, you know, to maintain the trail or, you know, the bathroom or whatever. So, you know, I wouldn't support using the infrastructure sustainability fund for that, because that fund was created to pay for all those things that we have obligations to maintain in the future, as opposed to build in the future. That's my thoughts anyhow.
There's a motion then and a second, so if I understand it correctly, John, and now you would open it up to
Well,
any further public
if-
comment?
If everybody on the board has said their say yes, it's public comment time. Yeah, in the room first. Anybody who has a comment on the Milltown plan, please, you have one. You don't have to raise your hand, but you do have to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. Thank you. Your name and your address.
Jessica Mannion, 1341 Park Ave. I just had a question as far as the differences in the options. On the website, it just said seed, like leveling and seeding. So could you just give any more, like, is it usable or is it purely just, is there a trail? Is there a playground? Is there parking or?
Not for the initial dam work that they're authorizing now. The motion is not for any of that. It's just to lower the dam further, to get in compliance with DEP, to make it a low hazard dam. And then the seed and straw, seed and mulch is how it's referred to, is to revegetate the area that's been disturbed. So it is just strictly just the dam work. The board was just talking about phasing in a trail and a park. Maybe not exactly the one that looks like the master plan. We'd have to talk about that long term. But it sounds like there's a commitment to do that over the coming years, just not authorized tonight. From, I don't know, you guys can correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
he's right. I think
No,
what-
in fact, I'll make that commitment, and I think, will I be joined by others?
Yeah, my
Yep.
sense would be the trail around or in making pedestrian access available will be a first priority improvement, whether it will be in the first year post-construction of the basics or very soon thereafter. And that would include some improvements of parking, whether it's just gravel or macadam, what have you. But those would be the two first priorities that I'll be leaving the board at the end of this year, but for the board going forward, that would be something I would hope that would be the first order of business to make the improvements.
And there was a net left on the bond of 400,000 that was unused. Can that be added to the plans to say we're gonna put another 400 in to?
That's the benefit at this point, based upon this decision to just do the basics first. And then there's still some of that bond money left to then take the next phase, however that's going to play out.
And that would actually be my ask, if that, whatever's left from this, if we can just put it towards our first payment of our improvements, that we don't touch that until.
Yeah, and
Milltown Dam.
as David brought up, if we don't have to spend the contingency and change orders and excessive additional costs from the contractor, and we're definitely, it could grow. It could be more than
it could be
400.
more than that.
It could be
400,000.
substantially more, up to $1 million.
Again, the basic bid that is, the board is ready to take action on, this $993,000, in addition to that, as David clarified, the total amount that we see in this project now is about 1.5 million. So 15% of that $150,000 is contingency. If we don't have change orders or something unusual doesn't come up, that goes to that 400, then you're at 550. If our engineering costs, instead of being estimated here $360,000 come in at 200,000, we add another 150 to that. So you've got 700,000 to start that next stage of improvements, which again, it sounds like the board is on board with a trail, pedestrian access and accessibility via vehicles to park.
And this money is sitting in a fund making over 5% right now.
So that has a few bucks.
And as part of a contingency with the bond, when we went out for it in 2017, I mean, it wasn't me, but I've read all the language. It's earmarked for this park. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
un-
yes.
so
So it's
unless,
not like they had to go through a reapproval process
No.
to
No.
use that rest of
It's
that.
not going to get petered away to some
Yes.
other project. This is
Okay.
designated money.
Our concern is, I think I speak for the whole board when I say we don't have the big lump of $4 million right now to spend. But our thinking is if we get this project underway, at least we're going to get part of it done and we're going to avoid additional costs in the future. You can see over 6 or 7 years how much it's grown, just like Topsy. It's crazy. So we want to get some of it done, and then we'll if we can later this year or into the early part of next year, spend some of that other money.
And then my last question was just how long is the project going to take, this option one? I mean,
I know.
You know what? I'm gonna take a stab. If the
Oh,
bid
my
is
God.
approved-
I'm not gonna hold you to
You
it, but
don't
I'm
have
just
'cause
trying
I
to get
won't
an
be on the
idea.
board. You don't have to worry. So I can
She'll
take
come
a
down
stab.
to my house and bang on the door. Thanks, Mike.
Cool.
If the bid is approved tonight, as indicated, they have probably 60 days to start. We'll be into November at that point in time. Weather permitting, they start to do work depending on the severity of the winter season, more or less could occur. They could finish this project portion possibly by this time next year.
Okay.
Possible. That's, now you correct me if I'm.
Sooner.
I think there'd be a
Sooner
lot
than that.
sooner than.
Well, good. Well, there you go.
I'm
They're
optimistic.
gonna be on the board, so they've made that representation.
I'm not
But
promising
knowing
anything, but
what I
would
know
think
about
sooner.
local government and about the processes and the external elements associated with a project like this, I'd be really pleased if it was in place and being fully stabilized by September of 24. And then it would probably be a discussion for the budget for 25 to say, let's put in the trail now, let's put in the improvements and have those affected in 25, starting in the spring of 25, and depending on what that trail is going to be, whether or not our internal staff, Public Works can do some of the work, or whether that would be contracted out, that would have to be bid. You go through that process and time. So the trail potentially could be, and the parking accessibility could be in by September 25. That's me talking from my perspective and what I know about projects of this nature.
Okay.
What you don't know is John Herzog's very impatient. So, So-
I will be pushing.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Actually,
I will
Thank you.
remain a pragmatic existential.
Thank you.
thank you so much.
I do have a question for the board, and to a certain extent, the public here tonight, because I assume is for the project, here for the project. Because originally, when we thought it was going to be a multifaceted project, we were looking at a town hall style meeting to sort of kick off the construction, and that was going to be looking at a 2.5-year process. I guess I want everybody's thoughts on, it's a smaller project. If we can get going sooner rather than later and wrap it up sooner, is the town hall. I thought the town hall was more to talk about the master plan and the staging for that.
I
Are
don't
we
think
kind of all,
necessary for the dam project. but I think, community input would be nice on priorities on going forward.
Now, that being said, anybody can reach me anytime at the township building for specific questions. My name is Derek Davis, Township Manager, so
I think. it'd
I'll
be
give you
nice-
Dave's cell, but I'm here.
I think it would be nice as the spring rolls around, next year, the budget, and the new board's in place. That the spring of next year and as this project is starting to show itself out there. That you do have maybe a community gathering to talk about the ideas and put them in a package of thoughts that the
Yeah.
board can have in front of it. As it starts to contemplate the first series of improvements, because there could be a couple ideas within that will shape either the specifics of a trail and the access with parking or otherwise. So I still think that community involvement's of value to get that outreach and have people come in, either Zoom or be here and have a good exchange.
In addition to that, when you take a look at the comprehensive plan for the township in 2025, all those improvements and betterments could be discussed in the comprehensive plan
Yeah,
going forward.
yeah.
So, and that involves community input into the
Absolutely.
comprehensive plan. So I think that'd be perfect timing.
We'll come back, David and I will come back to remind you guys that if necessary.
Okay.
Use the word on.
Are there any other questions or comments in the room here? Please come up. Good shot.
Thanks, John King, live at 1345 Park Avenue, second house from the reservoir. Been there for 50 years. It was a great reservoir when we had it. The dewatering that you discussed, is that going to happen soon? We're getting eaten alive by the mosquitoes. They're horrible. We can't sit outside.
I would say, I would think that dewatering would start happening by October at the latest, November. In order to do the construction, they're gonna need to dewater.
Okay, so there's no help for the rest of this summer.
Maybe we
Yeah.
can talk to Mark about something.
We talked
Yeah.
about this last year, about doing something for
We- and-
mosquitoes.
and-
and they-
and-
we did do
and
that.
we
You
did
know
come
they're
out.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, we came,
Yeah.
yeah, there were some dunkers and Mark, actually, our public works director, took the dunkers out and he sunk them because people complained that their dogs were eating them and sticking them up. So he made sure that they sunk the dunkers
Mhm.
and it really did help mitigate it. So maybe we can ask him, it's really hot this week too. Maybe we can ask him if
Yeah.
that's a possibility.
I mean, I think by the time the majority of the dewatering happens, we'll be past.
Yeah, but
mosquitoes.
for
Past
the
mosquito
immediate-
season.
I'm
immediate
just
situation,
saying
yeah.
when the dewatering happens.
So maybe we can do something for the immediate situation.
Yeah, if it would help, if he could help somehow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also mentioned
actually, it
that
doesn't
the-
really bother me that much, but my wife gets bit to crap every time she goes out.
Yeah.
And I need her help in the yard. I'm getting old.
If you have any local water, I'll mention that the Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Committee has some dunks for distribution. So if you contact, you can contact the township, contact Derek. We can actually give you some dunks for your own local standing water issues and so on. We have them, so.
Yeah, well, we have no standing water issues. They're all down at the reservoir.
Right.
There's no
So-
water on, we have a pond on our property, but it's a small pond.
We need to be put into the reservoir.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't think it's a problem because we've never had a problem. We've had the pond for 20-some years. And we're talking about the completion of this in 26, 27. I'll have them spread my ashes on it.
We
I'm
will be.
getting close to
pushing
80 now, so I'm not gonna make it that far.
Harder than that.
We hope-
Okay, guys.
we're hopeful that if we have some of the control within the township management, it's gonna move more quickly than if we had to go out to bid on certain things. So we are hopeful that we're gonna be able to move forward a little
I
bit
think
more.
there's a pretty good consensus that we really didn't want this entire park with the parking and the restrooms and all that stuff. We just basically, for the last 50 years, I like to have to walk on Reservoir Road without getting killed.
That's
Yeah.
nice. It's a nice idea. So simple. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay. No hands out, right?
Yeah, if
Yes,
anybody is
uh,
on Zoom, just that has a question, raise your hand and we'll get to you as soon as possible.
Yes, Melissa McGinnis. I'm 32 Lockwood Lane, directly on the reservoir. And I guess all the numbers tonight, I guess before you take the vote, could you just give us a recap of exactly what is being spent and on what? And I guess, well,
Why don't we have Dave do that so that you
Yeah,
get the right
Dave-
numbers?
Dave, if you would, start with the subtotal costs, because that's the highest number.
Sure. So what we're discussing is option one, which is just the,
thank you.
that's the completing the breach, right, Derek?
Yes.
And then they will be doing plantings and dewaterings, grass seed, things like that in the wetlands there. So that the engineering, that removal and planting, and a contingency cost included is about $1.5 million.
And that's just down at the dam area, down at the
Yeah.
lowest.
Here's what we're talking
All right,
about.
I
This
think I have it here.
Right here. This 1.5 million.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, that's the focus.
Okay, so that's all down at the dam area. So there's actually nothing happening where there used to be the pond.
Well, I don't know where, I mean, we'd have to look into how the staging is gonna happen down there. So
Like right now, there's like a little pond at one end and a stream that runs to it.
Yep.
Is that
there's
all going?
there's no work going on there, but as far as staging for the work going on specifically at the dam, we'll have to work with the contractor to see exactly where staging is going to happen.
big equipment.
Correct.
Well, but will there still be a stream running through? And a pond at the end? All that is going to stay, right, for right now, the
Right
way
now,
it is
yes.
at the top.
Yes,
The
Okay.
stream is what they're going for.
yes.
They want the water to flow the way it naturally, the way it did
Yeah.
before anything was built there.
I mean, I can't say the lowering of the dam, the way it's gonna do it is gonna not affect the stream flow at all. I mean, it should, but to what extent, I'd have to get into that with the engineer.
The Army Corps of Engineers over the last, it's going on almost a decade now, has been putting forth the policy of removing and eliminating many of these small dam structures if they're no longer functional or serving a particular need, to return the natural environment. And that's exactly what happened up at the Hershey's Mill Dam Park. And the stream that was there after the mill pond was removed, it had to be somewhat rechanneled and stabilized in that form. And it seems like it's taken very very solidly to maintain that stream channel. And there'll be some of that activity to whether what we see now in the stream that is there, whether that is slightly rechanneled or not. With the master plan, it was almost certainly going to be rechanneled because of some of the relationships of these ponds that were going to be a part of it. But hopefully the current flow is going to, that channel is going to maintain itself. But the whole purpose behind this is to remove these impoundments, if you will, these ponds, in this case, a reservoir that was no longer serving as a water source, but that don't have a function, and that the original or the natural environment, riparian, if you will, can be returned. So that all started with the Army Corps of Engineers and continues.
All right, I guess another question I had is, isn't there some way that we can also work on the top part at the same time we're finishing the decommissioning of the dam?
No, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about phasing things in. So we also need to see what the contractor has in mind for this first part of the project before we can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it does involve the breaching of the dam, but I'm not sure the nature of some of the return vegetation that will be put in, and whether that will extend with this bid all the way up to the northern portion of the reservoir. My sense of it is that it's going to include some of that because it needs to be stabilized, and they will be removing, I imagine, some load of sediment from not just the immediate area where the outfall was, but also going back. And in that case, they're going to have to, restabilize that and probably replant it. But I don't know the details. of whether it's, that kind of planning and renaturalization, if you will, is going to extend all the way to the north. My sense would be to some degree it will with this bid.
Which
Okay.
is why we have to kind of wait and see what the contractor's work will entail. So it's not a matter of not wanting to move forward, but we also can't get in there and work at the same time the contractor's there.
Okay, and I guess my final comment is, can we maybe get a group of the neighbors together and start that now rather than wait till later?
Well, it makes sense for us to have the contractor come in and start the project first to see what it will entail. And then we'll have a better sense of what the next step should be. So that's why we were thinking maybe have a town hall early next year. Because at that point, we should have a more clear picture of what it's going to entail, what they're going to be doing in the first phase.
Okay.
So then at that point, we can plan a town hall with the neighbors and see what some of your expectations and desires would be. And if those things are some things that would fit in with what the township direction wants to, if the township supervisors at that point want to go in that direction, then by all means. So you have support with a number of us already who are on the board currently saying, yes, we want to see some trails in there. We want to see some plantings. We want to make sure that this is restored so that it's not the eyesore that it is. So it's not that you don't have the support. It's just we have to do it in the right order. That's all.
Thank you for saying.
And I think
eyesore.
it would be good to.
Well, it's not just an eyesore. Those ponds are where the mosquitoes breed. I'm sure you know that. Once we get rid of the ponds, once we dewater and get it down to a flowing stream, the mosquitoes won't be nearly.
No,
as
I'm
bad.
not, I'm not as concerned about the mosquitoes as just the overall look and the disappointment that we have as in the neighborhood, that it's not at all following the,
original master plan.
yes,
Nope.
in any way.
And we understand, and we referenced that earlier tonight. Let either, if not tonight, contact Derek and
I
let him
will.
know you're interested if there's a committee that's formed that you're interested, or if you have some of your neighbors, and submit your name so he has that
Okay,
as a
I will.
reference point. When,
do
because
that.
I think it's a good idea to have the immediate, there was the Milltown Dam.
Yes, my husband
committee.
was on
Was
that
on- yeah.
committee, yes.
So I think that should be reconstituted from my perspective.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Anyone on Zoom? Okay.
I do
think
not
we're
see
to the
any
end of it.
hands, Mr. Chairman.
Not hearing any other comments, then I'll call the question.
I
What?
just did. Yeah,
Okay,
there's no
check it.
hands raised.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it passes
Great.
5-0.
Awesome.
Thank you.
This is a straightforward one. I'm gonna make a motion to start this out. This is on the approval of a sewage planning module. Move that the board authorize township manager to sign the sewage facilities planning module for 1671 East Strasburg Road with the following condition: that no permits may be issued or approved until this planning module is approved by the DEP and confirmation provided to the township zoning officer. And this motion is in recognition of the staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, I have no idea what this is. Can you explain it?
Sure. So this is for, as I said, 1671 East Strasburg Road, also known as the Connors property. They are doing some sort of, say, equestrian sort of farm there. They're essentially, there's no access to public sewer. They're doing requesting to do two different septic systems, just given how the property is laid out and the two different buildings on there. In order to do septic systems nowadays, you have to do a sewage facilities planning module, which takes into account hydraulic studies, soil samples. And it goes through us first at the municipal level. And then the job of the Board of Supervisors is that after it's been reviewed by our staff and engineers, is to say that it has been, and now to pass it on to DEP, who has the final say in okaying the septic systems as outlined. Mark, am I missing anything?
No.
Okay.
The township staff is mentioned here. I don't see a recommendation from them.
Well, but by way of it coming to us from the staff, that's why I referenced it in the motion, this per this recommendation of the staff that we approve this so we can get it to DEP.
Okay. That's clear. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Comments in the room or questions? How about on Zoom? I don't see any. Good heavens. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna move that the board authorizes the chair to sign the stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement for the new addition and patio located at 1437 Grand Oak Lane. Coincidentally, this property owner's name is Connor as well, but there is no relation to the
No.
two properties, just so you're aware.
Well, my question is, I know somebody that lives on Grand Oak Lane. Is this near your house?
Yep, just diagonal.
Oh, okay.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Anybody in the room? On Zoom? Okay, we're clear. I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay.
Standing issues, Derek, what have you got?
Here. All right, just trying to get the agenda.
Take your time.
So standing issues, Milltown Dam project, I guess we talked about that enough tonight, where we stand, so. I will, but just reiterate, I'll follow with the engineer and the contractor.
Let me practice. Are we started yet?
Almost.
All right.
We're almost done now. So I will follow up with the engineer and the contractor and get that going. Milltown Pocket Park, nothing has changed. We're shooting for October installation, I believe. So I get with Mark. I'll try to get a more specific update for you. Mark and I talked about the Bow Tree Pond, and he is also looking to accomplish that in October.
You got money for that, don't you?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So all three projects are now sort of in motion. We'll keep an eye on them through the standing issues, but no major changes besides the Milltown Dam one, which we just approved.
How are we doing on the software implementation?
So I just talked to them today. Their key developer who's supposed to help us on the data poll starting on the 11th is out until the 14th. They're going to start that Friday. We're still on schedule. I mean, it's going to be a painful transition, but software implementations always are. I've done them before, and nobody's going to be 100% happy. There's always going to be hiccups and problems, but we're going to work through it. I would like to apologize to residents for Pimentus being down. There's some issues between people trying to pay online. So that's caused some headaches. I got to reach out to them and then try and navigate that with the implementation as well. So that's because we're probably moving into a new portal. So we will either work in tandem with Paymentus as we implement the new portal or switch 100%. But I know a lot of people are already hooked into it. So we'll probably ride it out for a while at least until we can really let people know what our new portal is, how it works, and get it all up and running. Probably sometime next year. But other than that, we're still on schedule, going through training videos. Jennifer's picking up more and more, and Kelly's been very good at helping her along and showing her the ropes.
Okay, good. Any other matter from the board?
None here.
Okay.
I'd like to throw something out to everybody, and it's just something for consideration, maybe not this year, but perhaps moving forward. In December, we always end up kind of pressed against a couple of holidays for that second meeting. And I feel like even though we do everything in daylight and we are being very transparent about things, I think that there's a perception of why are we passing a budget at this late hour right before Christmas and Hanukkah and all the other holidays that are celebrated during that time of the year. So I'd like to start thinking about maybe, if not this year, because I think it's too late for that, but maybe next year, moving it up so that we only have one meeting in December. And that's the first meeting of December, could be either the first or second week. And we just pass the budget then, rather than getting into that third week of December when it starts to get a little bit dicey. So thinking about that moving forward, and maybe we can make it happen, maybe not. But there are so many other budgets that are
Yeah.
dependent upon us doing something like that. We'd have to have everybody on board to get moving.
That's nice stuff. That shall be your pleasure.
The next meeting we have is a week from now and it will be on the budget.
Yes.
Okay, any public comment in the room? First comment? Please come up.
Will the budget, Dave, the budget focus, our first one will be on the general fund?
Correct.
Yeah. That may be here, I didn't think of this.
Hi, I'm Jack Rickenbach. I live in on Tanglewood Drive in Hershey's Mill Estates, the crown jewel of East Goshen Township, I might add. This is sort of trivial compared to the stuff that you've been discussing with projects and budgets. But I'm here to clarify just a few things because it's getting a little fuzzy. I do events in my backyard, which has commonly become known as Jackyard to my neighbors. Frequently, they will see me on the street or whatever and say, hey, when's the next Jackyard? And what Jackyard is a social gathering, a music event, a picnic, a party. It's a neighborhood function. It's open to all our neighbors. And I think we have about 140 homes in our estates. And at least half of them at one time or another have shown up at Jackyard and have a good time. I have some regulars who come, all the time. And I try to do one of these a month. Now, I was here 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago, pre-pandemic. Some issues were happening and I have a neighbor who's a very vocal complainer, and I will just leave it at that. And he was definitely opposed to these events and he wanted to do everything he could to shut them down. It resulted in some, I don't know if they were modifications, but enhancements to the noise ordinance. And the requirement came out of that a permit would be required to do any of these events that may have been a little bit beyond what the noise ordinance really covered as normal noise, not counting lawnmowers and all that kind of stuff. So I was happy to do that. And in fact, I've done it for the last 3 years, every time I do a Jackyard. And I get approval from the board and everything was going smoothly. But recently, this neighbor has escalated his resentment, or what I'm thinking is a vendetta against me, to the point where even though I have a permit, he will call the cops. Policemen, I'm sorry. Policemen. I've met 3 of them now. They're all wonderful. They're very professional. They're very smart. And what I learned back at the previous board meeting that I attended, the board thinks these are not board issues, that it's more neighbor to neighbor, and they really, you guys and lady, do not really want to get involved in that kind of thing, which I think is great. But unfortunately, because my neighbor now has taken it to the point of getting the board involved because of the police activity that he requires, even though I do have permits, I think something needs to be either said or done to kind of back him off. I do have a personal concern that my observation of him is that he is a little over the top personality wise. And I just kind of fear that maybe someday he's going to take it to the next step and something bad's going to happen. And my wife is very concerned about that too. So I wanted to bring that up. And the other thing I wanted to clarify is apparently the latest ploy he's trying to say is that I'm running a business in my yard, which is furthest thing from the truth. I do have a business that I own during the day, and the purpose there is to make money and to satisfy our clients. I haven't made a penny out of any Jackyard experiences. In fact, every time I do one of these, I lose money. I buy refreshments, I buy ice, I buy, set up water coolers and God knows what. And also the neighbors, and it's open to all the neighbors. And if a musician or performer has friends, I want to make it very clear. I say, you can bring them, but they have to RSVP to my Gmail. I do not ever publish my address outside of the community. So that's very important to me. Otherwise, if word gets around, all of a sudden, who's going to show up? So I try to keep control of that, but I want to make sure that you understand this is not a business. I do not make money. What we do is based on the enjoyment of the audience. I pass a bucket around, they throw money in it, and whatever money is in there, I hand it to the performer. It's theirs. I don't take a cent. Some of them actually have CDs, although no one has CD players anymore, but they will bring some CDs if they want to, sell them, and they usually offer them at a really great price, for the neighbors. So I don't take a penny out of that either. So I just wanted to make that point because apparently it's kind of been discussed lately, and I just wanted to make sure that I do this because I am a part-time musician. I love music. I love to share it with my neighbors and friends. And with one exception, over the last 6 years, the feedback I have gotten is very positive and encouraging. So I just wanted to go on record as telling you that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I'm gonna ask a question. So, it's just something you do in your backyard and yet you promote it online as a backyard event. So it's promoted online.
It's promoted. Yes, yeah, it's promoted online, but it is not a ticketed event. I said, if, it's promoted, I have a mailing list to my neighbors, and I have a mailing list to the circle of musicians that tend to perform there. All of them are local. And I always say, if you're not a neighbor, RSVP, so I know you're coming and you know the regulations.
But it is an advertised promoted event is my question.
Social media is not really advertising, but yes, it is on social media.
It's also on the website. There's a website, so
Yes.
that's promotion. Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody in the room?
Thank
you, Jack.
Thanks for my only couple quick comments is thanks for coming. And I don't have any interest in bringing up a modification of the noise ordinance this year or next year at this time. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Say thanks for coming, and don't forget to tip your
And
waiters.
there is one more I got a frog in my throat. There's one more Jackyard in September that I applied for the permit, and that will happen on the 24th, Sunday at 4 o'clock. And I will send emails to all of the board and supervisors. Hopefully you will attend. I know 2 have already been to Jackyard, so they know what they're all about. I think you'll enjoy the vibe and the camaraderie. Thanks.
Thank you. Where am I? Liaison reports? Any liaison?
No, I don't
reports?
think anyone had any.
Any other public comment?
Okay, any other public comment? Thank you, Vice Chair.
I'm good for something.
Correspondence reports, we have none.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
You said that so quick, I didn't understand. What
It's like
did
I
you
didn't
say?
Good night.